Imagine buying your kid a toy only to find the batteries aren't included, or buying furniture but it's missing the tools to build it. Frustrating, right? Now imagine that exact same feeling, but you're paying way more. That is what buying business software usually feels like: fragmented, disconnected, and incredibly expensive. Odoo completely changes that. Odoo is a complete, fully integrated business suite where all your apps actually talk to each other. We're talking automated lead routing for your sales team, seamless AI integration, and an intuitive point-and-click website builder. It's everything your business needs to scale, saving you time, headaches, and money. Stop piecing your software together. Go to odoo.com. That's ODOO.com to learn more.
Welcome back to the Center in the City podcast, a space to pause, breathe, and come back to yourself, even in the middle of a full and busy life. I'm your host, Wade Brill, and in each episode, we explore mindfulness for real life, simple practices, reflections, tools to help you feel grounded, present, and connected to what matters most to you. So let's settle in and let's get centered. Welcome back to the Center in the City podcast. I'm your host, Wade Brill, and I am so glad you are here. In today's solo episode, we're going to explore the dopamine addiction that many of us have. We're going to explore how we can notice when we're in a dopamine addicted loop, and more importantly, how we can start to untangle from it and work with it so that we can more intentionally choose where we want to be focusing and putting our attention instead of going to this autopilot dopamine addicted loop. Now, when it comes to dopamine, I'm not just talking about the addiction many of us have to our cell phones and technology. I'm also talking about this desire to just constantly look for the pleasant in life. And there's a big difference between looking for the pleasant in a way that's expanding and regulating for our nervous systems. And there's a way that we're constantly searching for the pleasant in a way that can be harmful, in a way that causes us to search for dopamine instead of giving ourselves the spaciousness to be with whatever is here in the moment. So if you're somebody who notices you're in an addicted cycle of searching for those hits, whether it's on your phone or in the real world, cravings, deep desires to just get that boost, this episode is for you. So wherever you're listening, I welcome you to settle in and let's get centered. Have you ever picked up your phone to check that text and suddenly you're on Instagram, scrolling, watching a reel, ordering something online you didn't really need, or wondering, damn, where did the last 20 minutes just go? Or maybe you've noticed yourself reaching for your phone every time there's a little buzz or blinking light that shows up on your phone. Or maybe it's while you're standing in line or waiting for your coffee or waiting for your car or sitting on the couch while you're watching your favorite show. And we pick up our phones just because we say we're just going to check something little, but we often don't realize we're chasing something when we pick up our phones. We're chasing that tiny hit, that little reward, that little bump, a little distraction from discomfort, or a little boost of inspiration, or a little tingle of sensation of something shiny. So today we're talking about this dopamine loop, and I want to make sure we're not framing this as a bad thing. This is a natural process that happens in our brain. And I want to bring attention, awareness to this process so that we can start to bring some mindfulness. We can start to bring some curiosity, some awareness to our present moment actions and behaviors, so we can reclaim our attention, so we can reclaim our time, so we can reclaim our presence and our peace. The other day I was having a client session and she called herself out. She was like, you know what? I say that I don't have time for something, but then I reflect and I've just spent 5 hours on my phone today. 5 hours on my phone today. And she's like, yeah, some of that was work and some of that's, social connection, but 5 hours. And she was like, if I am giving that time away to this device and to the apps on this device, and yet I'm saying I don't have time to meditate or I don't have time to move my body, that's a lie. And I think many of us fall into this trap and into this habit. And doing an exercise like a time survey to track your time throughout the day can be really helpful to understand how are you actually spending your time? Where are you putting your resources? Sometimes I have my clients do this depending on what they're wanting to explore, but for some, they recognize, oh, there's a pattern where I'm getting trapped in more of the busy work or the emails or Slack because I'm wanting to care for my team and respond to everybody instead of actually being clearer on what are my priorities and what do I need to take care of for the day. So if you're somebody who's listening to this and you're like, I want to understand my habits and my patterns more closely, I really welcome you to do this kind of exercise to objectively time track yourself. Note how much time are you spending doing X, Y, and Z. And this simple but very rich exercise can help you recognize where you're stuck, where you're feeling drained, where you're feeling energized. It can help you gain some feedback to then think about what can you shift to be more in alignment with your values. And if you're looking for more support there, feel free to reach out. I am taking on a few more one-on-one clients for the summer months. I'll link my calendar link in the show notes if you want to sign up for a complimentary call to explore this. So let's circle back to dopamine because that's what we're talking about here on the podcast. And so what is dopamine, right? We think of dopamine as this happy chemical. Dopamine plays a really important role in many of the body's functions. It's a neurotransmitter, meaning it sends signals from the brain to the rest of the body. Dopamine can also be a hormone in the body, supporting the body in the fight or flight response, or supporting the body with the blood vessels, learning how to constrict or relax. And dopamine is known as this feel-good hormone because it gives us the sense of pleasure. It gives us the motivation to do something when we can anticipate that there's something pleasurable happening. From an evolutionary perspective, dopamine rewards the human brain to help us survive. So we get that boost of dopamine to help us eat or drink or to compete to survive. And because we get that boost of the hormone, it then reminds us that we want to keep doing those things because we seek those pleasant hormones. We seek that pleasant feeling. And when we eat junk food or have high sugar intake, we get big dopamine boosts and it makes us feel on top of the world for that half an hour. And then we have these big, huge crashes. The same might happen with our technology. We might feel that boost in the moment, but it's not lasting. Or we might press buy on online shopping looking for that dose, and guess what? It quickly fades. When we think about even like drug use, drugs typically, whether it's cocaine, marijuana, they stimulate this reward center in our brain. It creates this pleasurable feeling. And so we tie that pleasurable feeling with that drug. Maybe it's even sugar as the drug. And so our brain wants more of it. It wants more of it because it wants that feeling. And when we create more of that, we're over stimulating this reward center and it weakens these other parts of our brains. And then it creates this sense of withdrawal and we become like more anxious or more irritable as these drugs wear off in our system. And then we're seeking more of this pleasurable thing, whether it's, again, drugs, technology, sugar, because we're looking for more than release and relief from the discomfort that we're feeling as the drug is wearing off. So it becomes this very addicting, vicious cycle that is hard to break. Now, I want to just pause here, and I'm talking about the dopamine cycle from this very zoomed out bird's eye perspective. If you are somebody that is managing a deep addiction to food or drugs or sex or alcohol, I really welcome you to seek care, seek support. This episode is not meant to be medical advice. It is meant to be mindfulness exploration. Now we live in a world that again is designed to be addictive. Our brain has learned how to evolve to this reward behavior system where we're constantly finding food and where can we order it faster on Uber Eats or build relationships with swiping left or right. Are we getting a yes or a no? Are we getting these rewards from technology, from every notification, every like, every email that comes in, every package that's delivered to our doorstep, every box we open, every swipe we take? It creates this anticipation. Now, it's not bad to want pleasant things in life. It's not bad to enjoy the pleasantness, but it's when it starts to become this hunt and comes from this place of addiction, like we're searching for that next boost versus learning how to be in the stillness or the expansiveness, the pleasant, the unpleasant of the present moment. That's where it can become a little bit troublesome. So if you are listening to this podcast, I know you deeply care about your personal development, your growth, your spirituality, your own heart, and how you can be a more present person in this world. And so I know you care and you're doing the best that you can. And sometimes we confuse, what I notice with my clients is that we confuse stimulation with this idea of fulfillment, right? If I'm getting this feedback, this reward system in my life, that means I'm feeling fulfilled. And when there's not that reward system, when nobody's texting you back, or when there's no package coming, or there's no accolade shout out, or there's no date scheduled, it can feel uncomfortable, can create some restlessness. And then maybe we start to feel lonely, or we start to create some self-doubt, or we feel more anxious, or we just have a hard time being with ourselves, being in our skin, being in the present moment. Silence starts to feel uncomfortable, or being present feels boring, or meditation feels impossible. And it's not because you're doing it wrong. It's just because your system has now been trained in a way that's been accustomed to constant novelty, constant searching, constant pleasantness. I've told this story before on the podcast, but I think it's so important. When I was on my month-long meditation retreat, I had a teacher share with me that she wanted me to start to look for the neutral moments of the day. And I was like, what do you mean the neutral moments? Like, why would I want to rest my attention on like the white bread moments of the day? That feels so boring. And she was like, exactly. Learning how to be bored is so important. Learning how to be with that neutrality is where life fully is. Because when we get wrapped up into this system and this black and white thinking, these extremes of everything has to be pleasant and nothing can be negative, we really cut ourselves off, not only from experiencing the spectrum of life, even when it's difficult, but we cut ourselves off because we're actually not being present with reality. We're creating these little delusional, pleasant bubbles. And to a certain extent, finding the pleasant, finding the light, finding the joy, finding where there's energy in life is really important, because that's what gives us resources. That's what helps light up our systems. I know when I was going through my shitstorm after cancer, after I lost my mom, that is what gave me strength to keep going. That is what pulled me out of my depression. That is what supported me keeping my heart open, allowing myself to connect to people, to date, to just still be open to life. So it's a very smart and wise strategy to support our mental health and well-being, but it also needs to be balanced, because we can't just create these positive poly bubbles to live in, because that's not real life. So do you find yourself reaching for your phone before getting out of bed, or before you go to sleep at night, just constantly glued to it? Do you struggle to finish your tasks before starting another? Do you constantly refresh your email looking for something even when you're not really expecting anything to come in? Do you feel uncomfortable with silence? Do you scroll when you're feeling emotionally uncomfortable? Does rest actually make you feel more anxious? If you notice that these patterns are present in your life, I don't want you to shame yourself or say, I'm horrible or I'm doing this wrong, but just curiously and kindly take a look at your life, at your actions, how you spend your time. And this can be information without judgment, information to just recognize maybe you notice that you feel safer when there's stimulation instead of stillness. And these moments might feel really micro, but they add up, right? How often are you out to dinner with friends or a loved one and you check your phone and you allow your brain to get caught up in a dopamine loop instead of being present with the people or the person in front of you? I've definitely been there. Or maybe you're on vacation and you told yourself you're not going to touch work, but then halfway through the vacation, you're like, oh my God, I need to know what's going on and I need to feel that boost. And you check your Slack. I even recognize where dopamine shows up in my life. Like when I reach for a piece of chocolate, that little zing I feel afterwards. And I'm like, oh yeah, of course I'm in this habit of having a piece of chocolate after lunch because I've created this cycle for myself. I even recognize this dopamine loop happens in these small moments with my husband where maybe he cleaned up the kitchen sink, which is like one of my pet peeves. I hate it when the kitchen sink is full of dishes or food or whatever it is. And so maybe he's cleaned up the sink and I have this dopamine hit of like, oh my God, he's done it without me asking and this feels so good. And then I start to search for it. I start to want that same reward for him all of the time. And the communication is already there. He knows that is a value of mine. He knows that is important to me. And his own capacity is only able to do that every so often. Just the other day, I posted something on social media and I got no likes, like 0. And there was a part of me that was like, oh, should I delete this? And then I realized why? So I can go after and search for these likes because these likes tell me I'm worthy, tell me I did a good job. It's like, I'd rather put my time and attention elsewhere in my life than be trapped into this app and into this algorithm and into playing this loop of a game. Movement is a big dopamine release for me. I know even if I don't feel like moving, if I don't feel like going for that walk or doing that Pilates class or signing up for that class, I know myself and I have gone through this road long enough that I'm going to feel so much better afterwards that I just focus on that. So the dopamine reward system actually works there to help me motivate to follow through with this after the fact feeling. And that can be really amazing and helpful to an extent. But over exercising is also a real thing. Sometimes doing too much movement because I'm searching for that dopamine hit is where I can go because I'm looking for that reward system. In maybe a day where I haven't felt enough reward or at a time in my life where I'm feeling really low energy. And again, not saying this is a bad thing. I'm not judging it, but it's insight. And that's where this exploration around balance comes in because too much of anything is not good. By exploring our relationship to dopamine, I'm again not saying don't find the joy. The goal here is becoming intentional instead of automatic, to choose pleasure from a place of choice instead of compulsively chasing that stimulation. So let's explore a few strategies of how to bring more mindfulness to your actions, to choose consciously and intentionally what's going to be pleasurable. So this first tip comes from my book, 100 Mindful Moments to Balance and Energize. I'll link it in the show notes. It's an interactive journal. And one of the mindful moments, one of the tips is to pause before you peak. Pause before you peak. So anytime you hear a notification, a ding, a buzz, a light going off, something popping up on your screen or computer, I want you to pause before you check it. And in that moment of pause, you are slowing your system down. You are taking yourself off of autopilot. And in that moment of pause, you ask yourself, what am I reaching for? Is there a sense of reaching for connection? Is it information? Is it stimulation? The curiosity, avoidance, relief? In this pause, asking yourself, what am I hoping to get out of this action? Like, what's the need that I'm hoping looking at this email or this notification gives me? That sense of curiosity that you can have is literally life. It will give you so much more control and power back when you can get curious instead of be on autopilot or in judgment. The next practice here kind of builds on the first one, or it can be its own, but it's to delay the reward. So instead of checking your phone immediately, maybe you're dating somebody new and you're in that like really fun, flirty era where you're texting each other back and forth. Can you pause and delay the reward of checking your phone? Meaning, can you create some boundaries here and slow it down so that you're not picking up your phone every 30 seconds or every time there's a ping or a ding? This is so important because this patterning helps your brain focus. It helps you have control of where you're putting your attention versus allowing your attention to get hijacked by the noise around you. And you might be like, oh my God, but wait, it feels so good. Why would I want to delay this gratification? But that's exactly right. It's like slow down the dopamine release. You don't need to flood your system. Once you flood your system, it makes it more addicting, right? We come back to that system where your reward system gets oversaturated. And then when that reward system isn't there, so if that person is not texting anymore or they've ghosted completely, you're not as typically inclined to fall into despair and the anxiety and panic loop of the withdrawal from that dopamine. You've also maybe learned how to get that dopamine from other more sustainable sources, and we'll talk about that in a few moments, instead of these quick hits and fixes. So just like in the food world, there is so much conversation around junk food and how horrible corn syrup is and white sugar and flour, things that are very addicting and not good for you. The same is kind of true when we think about dopamine. These hits, these pleasure rewards, like we can have these fake false hits of connection through our technology, but we can also create longer lasting, more rich hits of dopamine when we're connecting with people in real life or on a date or taking a walk. We can think of these systems, this rich dopamine, still as sugar, right? Still as something sweet and pleasurable, but it might be like coconut sugar or date sugar or maple syrup or honey. So it's like still the same molecule, but it's better for your system. It's longer lasting. There's more vitamins and nutrients in it. So some rich dopamine, walks outside, meaningful conversations with friends. Maybe that's taking a walk or grabbing a coffee. That's doing something creative with your hands, reading a really good book, listening to a great podcast, cooking, meditating, playing, moving your body, being in the garden, doing acts of service. And just notice if you can slow it down, what about those dopamine-rich experiences feel rich to you, are energizing, are pleasurable? And what feels like this quick fix, this quick hit? Now, this next practice is a big one. because we as a culture, especially American culture and the Western world, is addicted to more and more and more and more, right? We want more dopamine. We want more pleasantness. We're scrolling, finding more and more. And that conversation, that priming in our brain that's looking for more is really challenging because it somehow tells ourselves and each other in the present moment that there's not enough here, right? Like we might be out to dinner with a group of friends having an amazing time, but there's just still this inkling in our brains like, oh, let me check my phone and see what's happening in the internet because there's this whole other world of dopamine I might be missing out on. So circling back to this meditation teacher on my retreat that gave me this prompt to just search for the neutral, she even mentioned this example of, when you are at your home and you're sitting around the living room with family, it can be kind of boring, right? It might be nice to catch up for a little bit and then you're maybe just sitting there. And it's like, how do we enjoy each other's company? And a lot of the time people grab their phones and they start doing things. And it's because we're uncomfortable, especially as adults, and sure, kids too these days, and adults watching their kids, being with boredom. So can you notice where there's that tension in your life, where there's neutral moments and those moments that your brain goes, what's next? I want more. And can you slow that down? And this is really challenging, but this is just an invitation for us all, like myself included, to practice. Can we slow that down? Instead of saying, what's next? I want more. Can we say, what's already here? What can I actually get more curious about in this present moment? How can this moment feel enough and rich enough? One of the gifts that I feel like I've received of my years of going on a silent meditation retreat and practicing mindfulness is to recognize how deeply rich the present moment is. But in our day-to-day life, we're so busy, we're moving so fast, we're used to so much stimulus that the kind of slowing down enough to just watch the ordinary, right? Just to sit in a chair outside and feel the breeze, look at the trees in the wind, watch the bees and the flowers, see the birds going by, listening to sounds that can just feel boring. Like, duh, that's happening. That's life. But when you actually slow down enough, you recognize the magic of that moment, the simplicity of that moment, the miracle of that moment. And that moment that feels so minuscule becomes so expansive and beautiful. And it reminds us how much is actually there, the depth of what is there, and the depth of what we are. So this moment is enough and we are enough, just as we are. So we also don't have to have that dopamine addicted feeling to do more, to be more, because we see the enoughness of the moment. We see the enoughness of ourselves. Our attention, our energy are some of the most valuable resources we have. And they're easily taken by other things in our life if we're not conscious of how we want to orient around them and train them and express them and receive them and give them. But these present moments that we have with our aging parents or our kids or our nieces or nephews or our friends or the garden the way it is, or traveling or tasting this meal at a restaurant or having this conversation with a stranger, these are all fleeting moments in life. We're never going to get them back. So as we wind this episode down, I welcome you to reflect on all that was talked about today. And I welcome you to think about where in your life do you recognize that you're chasing that next hit? Maybe slow down that instance a little bit more and get curious about it. Notice how do you know? and even recognize, where do you think that's coming from? What need of yours do you feel like you're trying to fill with that quick dopamine fix? Maybe what's a strategy or a practice from this episode that I offer that you want to play with, that you want to try to integrate into your life? Maybe it's pausing before you peak. Maybe it's practicing, what need am I trying to fill in this moment? Maybe it's delaying the gratification. You're going to put some boundaries around it. Maybe it's you just tuning into what's enough in this moment, what's here, instead of thinking about what's next. Why do I need more? I would love to hear what comes alive for you in today's episode. And may we support each other, knowing that we're not alone, because the world has been designed, the context that we're living in is designed to be this addicting. And so it takes even more awareness and willpower to be intentional with our actions. And I know you can do it because you're here listening to this episode, so that means you care. And it's just about taking one tiny step at a time and about being aware with your practice and aware of your actions and starting to bring awareness with this sense of curiosity and kindness, so you're not judging or shaming yourself along the way. If you found this episode helpful, please take a moment to share it with somebody in your world. Maybe even take a moment to rate and review this podcast. It helps so much to expand our reach. Check out the show notes for so many great resources that you can take into your life. Thank you for being here and letting me into your ears, your heart, your mind. And until next time, stay centered.